To cliffhang or not to cliffhang? That is generally the question that people ask about ending their chapters. But I'm going to submit that that's actually the wrong question to ask. There are various ways to end your chapter, and this is what we're going to talk about today. But most people are just thinking about it in entirely the wrong way. I'm going to tell you why and how you should think about it and what you can do to try to come up with really great endings to your chapters that will propel your reader through your story. Okay? Hi there. Do you want to write fiction that readers gush about, but you can't figure out how to fill in the beginning, middle, or end of your story? I can help with that. Do you struggle to flesh out character or plot, or to stick with your story long enough to finish it? I can help with that. Once your book is written, are you totally clueless about marketing? Do you find yourself Googling how to market a book or how to make money on fiction? I can help with that. Welcome to the Prolific Author Podcast. You know you're meant to write fiction, but you can't seem to nail down the skills or processes that make it simple and repeatable, not to mention fun. So you wait around for the muse to show up, try to force your story into a template or outline, or take months, if not years, to discover your story. Plot twist, there's a better way. Hi, I'm Liesl, USA Today bestselling author, story psychologist, writing craft geek, Christian, and story clarity coach. After 10 years of trying to master fiction using the old industry standard writing advice, I still felt lost. I finally learned what fictional storytelling and the human template are really about. Humanity, emotional connection, and serving our readers by giving them relief through vicarious experience. Imagine learning how to flesh out your characters, plot, world, and theme with such definition and clarity that every story you ever write lands with readers and makes people go, wow, now there's an author. Imagine knowing how to drill down to the heart of your story, to learn what it's really about, and tell the unique story that only you can tell, so that you can get more readers, more downloads, more royalties, and of course, more fiction writing success. This is the podcast for you. We are prolific authors. All right, so most authors only think about two different ways to end your chapters, either on a cliffhanger or not. Now, you're going to find examples of either one, and let's kind of explore what that means. Usually, at least what people think, is that ending on a cliffhanger means ending on high action that, of course, leaves the audience on the edge of their seat and makes them want to turn the page and keep reading. Whereas a non-cliffhanger ending is seen as one that sort of shores up what's happening in the chapter, almost like a little vignette or something, but doesn't necessarily push the reader forward, okay? This is what most people think of. It's either or. Either you're going to have a cliffhanger or you're not, okay? But like I said in the intro, that is actually not the right question to ask, okay? Whether you end on intense action, like, your character dangling over the edge of a cliff or something, really isn't the point, because what you're really going for at the end of your chapter is to keep the reader reading, to make them want to turn the page and continue to read another chapter rather than put your book down and stop for the moment, right? That's what you're going for. And there are various ways to do this. It does not have to be high action and suspense, right? So basically, there are three ways that I think you could propel the reader to keep going through your book. The first way is the one that everyone already knows about and that I've already talked about. It's the super suspenseful action, when either your character is in a life or death situation or you just dropped a bomb of information on the reader, like dun dun dun, those are kind of the high action or cliffhangery type chapter endings, and those are fine. If that works for your chapter and you want to do that, then by all means do it. I've done it before and lots of people do, right? It is a very effective way to keep the reader reading. Now, let's talk about what kind of scene this will work for. Obviously, it's going to work for a high action scene. It's going to work for climactic moments. Like I said, it's going to work for any time that you just dropped a major knowledge bomb of some kind on the reader in the story, okay? That's when this type of ending will work. So that's the one most people know about. Let's talk about the other two. One that I think I use more than probably any other type is what I call forward momentum. And all that means is that you are putting something at the end of your chapter that suggests action on the character's part. It doesn't have to actually be them in action, but it suggests perhaps what they're going to do next, or, what they're thinking about doing next. And it gives us kind of a way to kick the reader into the next chapter. If they kind of have some sort of expectation for what's going to happen next, that is naturally going to, help them feel the momentum of the story and want to turn the page. Okay, so let's say that your character just found something out and you don't really want to end on a cliffhanger because it just isn't going to work for the type of scene you're writing. You could end by having the character think about what they're going to do next. Or even, it can be physical motion. Have them walk out the door with the intention of doing something next. That makes the reader want to follow the character and want to see how that next scene is going to turn out, right? So you're giving them some sort of forward momentum that sort of hints at what the next scene is going to be or what the character is going to do next. Now, believe it or not, this can be just as effective at pushing the reader forward in the story and making them want to read more as, having the character dangling by their fingers at the edge of a cliff, okay? Either one works. And this is why I'm saying to cliffhang with high action or not is just not the right question. The only question is whether the way you end your chapter makes the reader want to move forward. Let's talk about the third way that you could end your chapter. Let's say that neither of these two ways work for you. You're in a scene where you more just want your character and by extension the reader to sit with what has happened. Let's say your character just got some really bad news, had their heart broken, or, it doesn't have to be sad, but just something that they're going to have a deep emotional reaction to. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's joy, maybe it's, just something very emotional. You can end the chapter on that emotion, but you have to make it very, very powerful. And there's a reason for this. When the reader feels that powerful emotion vicariously through your story, it makes them want to continue on with the story, because any kind of emotion tends to release endorphins and we want to continue feeling that. Okay, that's why we tend to wallow in bad emotion for a long time. It's why when we're really happy about something, we tend to, jump up and down, run all over the place, call all of our friends, because we're trying to, continue that emotion. And the same is true of stories. So even if you're not doing a forward momentum thing, even if it's not an action scene, if you just end on a very powerful emotion, what the character is feeling, that also, even without the forward momentum, will propel the reader forward in the story and want them to stay in the story because they want to, on a subconscious level, this is not a conscious thing, guys, they will want to continue feeling that emotion, okay? So once again, let's go over the three kinds. You can end with suspenseful action, high action, where it's kind of a dun-dun-dun sort of ending. You can end with just forward momentum that tells, gives the reader some suggestion of what's going to happen next or what the character is going to do next in the story so that they feel that momentum and want to see what's going to happen next. Or you can end on a very strong emotion. It has to be strong enough that it brings out that emotion in the reader as well, and that will make them want to stay in the story in order to keep feeling that emotion. So these are the three endings, and here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you some 3 tactical steps that you can use to figure out any chapter ending, okay? First of all, you need to sit back and decide which type of ending, I should say, will work best for your scene. So you have to ask yourself, is it a high action scene? Could I do a cliffhanger having to do with the action, okay? Is there any kind of knowledge bomb that I could drop and do a cliffhanger that way? If not, is there a way that I could end on some sort of forward momentum? So if your character just got new information, if they just made a decision, if something just changed for them, end on them either, physically going to do something about it and kind of give the reader some expectation of what they're going to do, or you can do this as internal dialogue, have them think about what they're going to do, or think about what the ramifications are of what they just learned on, what their motivations are for the story, that sort of thing, so that you're kind of ending with a forward momentum. Or is your scene one that you want them just to sit with the emotion of what's just happened in the scene? And if that's the case, figure out a way to end on a very, very strong emotion. Whatever the character is feeling, drop it like a ton of bricks on your readers in the last sentence so that they are really feeling that emotion, okay? So that's the first thing you're going to do. You're going to figure out what type of ending will work best and decide on one. Then I want you to sit and think about how you can enhance what you already have. So I'm not asking you to change anything in your story or in your scene. You definitely can add something in if you start thinking about it and decide that that's what's best for the story, but you don't have to do that. That's not what I'm telling you. Just look at what you already have and how can you enhance it. If you're going for the emotional one, the emotions will already be there in your scene. How can you emphasize them? How can you bring them out more? How can you really draw the reader into them? If you are going with the action one, well, the action is probably already there. That's why you're choosing that ending. But just think about how you could, where you could end the chapter that would be very cliffhanger-like and that would really, grip the reader and make them, have to turn the page to figure out what's going on. So again, just how can you enhance what you already have? How can you take that and turn it into a great ending that's going to pull the reader in and just really compel them to turn the page and keep reading? And finally, the third tactical step is that I want you to workshop it a little bit. So you can have somebody read it. It can be a reader, it can be another author, it can be, if you have a critique group, which I very much recommend, it can be through there, and specifically ask them, how was the ending? You know, you have to be very intentional about this. Ask them, if you read this ending, would you want to keep reading and find out what happened, or would you be like, oh, cool, and put the book down? That will give you a lot of feedback on how you're doing with your endings. And guys, this is something you have to practice. The first few times you do it, you're probably not going to be very good at chapter endings. But the more you do it, the more you workshop it, the more feedback you get, the more you think about it, the more intentional you are, even journal about it, maybe give yourself some time to free write about what the ending of a particular scene could look like. You will get better at it. You'll get to the point where you are a master at endings. So you just got to keep at it, okay? Let's recap really quickly. Most people think of chapter endings as either being action-like cliffhangers or not, and that is not the right question. You can do endings either with the high action, which is best for action scenes, forward momentum, in which you just show or through internal dialogue tell what the character is going to do next and give forward momentum that the reader will get swept up in. Or you can end on a strong emotion, bring the reader into the story through that emotion, help them feel it, and they will want to stay in the story longer, okay? So in order to figure that out, you just got to figure out what kind of scene you have, what ending would work best for it, and then emphasize and enhance what you have already written to create a really great ending without necessarily having to change your story at all, and workshop it. Have someone else read it and tell you what they think, okay? If you start doing this, you will start writing really, really fabulous endings. So I would love it if you would hop over to our Prolific Author Facebook group, or tell me in the comments of wherever you are listening to this, what is your favorite ending to use? Do you use them all? Have you used one or the other? Do you favor one? I would love to hear how you craft your endings, all right? So that is all I have for you today. I hope this has been helpful. Everyone have a wonderful week of writing. Get out there and write some really fabulous endings. Keep those readers reading and turning pages. And as always, remember, there is always a market for awesome. All right. I will see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye. Before you go, if you found value in this episode, can you do me a solid and share it with other authors you think might benefit from it? Remember, the rising tide lifts all boats. Also, if you haven't yet, would you be willing to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts? It's the only way for me to know that you're enjoying the podcast, and it helps Apple recommend it to other authors like you who might benefit from it. Finally, if you haven't already, hop over and join the Prolific Author community on Facebook. Inside, authors network, ask questions, and I often do teaching via Facebook Lives. Thank you so much for listening today. Happy story crafting this week, and remember, there is always a market for awesome.